This is Fred. Fred lives in Los Angeles, the United States of America. Fred is a successful entrepreneur. In 2014, he had a genius idea while walking through the park seeing many dogs. Just a few years later, his idea went through the roof and now he has 3 theme parks for dogs. Fred employs 150 Americans and has a yearly revenue of $30 million. Everybody loves Fred, and his employees are happy to work in such an innovative business. One of Fred's employees is Sandra. Sandra works hard because she knows that Fred pays her well and gives out bonuses to those that participate the most in the interest of the company. She likes to work for Fred because he is always accessible for her, but still gives her guidance by setting the expectations and goals. Therefore, Sandra is encouraged to take initiative and prefers to speak her mind. She is open to new ideas and likes to come up with innovations that improve the business process. Sandra likes her colleagues, but prefers to keep her work and private life separated. Therefore, she uses her days off to spend time with family and friends. After 6 years of being highly successful in the US, Fred decides to expand his business. So, he calls Catherine, an old school friend who moved to Spain after graduation. She proposes to him to expand to Spain with his business since she knows many dog owners who would be interested in a theme park. When thinking about expansion to another country, it is important to analyze the cultural differences according to the 6 dimensions of Hofstede. Those are power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. The working environment should correspondingly be adapted to the cultural characteristics. A year later, the deal has been closed and a new theme park in Madrid opens to the public. Fred has prepared everything carefully, just like he did in the US, to become as successful as he is in America. He has hired and trained 50 new Spanish employees and already plans on expanding to other countries in Europe. 3 months after opening, Fred is helpless. The business has only generated losses since the beginning and employees are dissatisfied. Fred does not understand what has gone wrong. While considering the closure of his new location, he remembers his good old friend Hofstede. Fred calls him for consultancy, and Hofstede sends him this table, which highlights cultural differences between Spain and America. Fred realizes that, for example, in America, people tend to be more competitive, which is why bonuses work, whereas the Spanish employees prioritize close relationships with colleagues and prefer teamwork over competition. But see for yourself. After analyzing the differences between the US and Spain, Fred realizes that this is a case of geographically based cultures clashing, and what has worked well for the US and his employees there might not work for every other country. Over the following month, Fred talks to his employees, catering, and he studies the Spanish culture. He adapts his working environment according to Hofstede's dimensions. He is now hopeful that his business will improve with these changes and gain a foothold in Spain. Fred strives for honesty and innovation in his business. Recently, he has launched an online communication tool in order to increase the effectiveness of internal communication. Since he is hardworking, he expects the same attitude from his employees. He thinks that only hard work and honest communication between him and his employees will lead to high quality and a successful service delivery. Sandra likes working for Fred because she shares his belief that business growth in the long term can only be achieved by thinking outside the box and hence determine a differentiated market position. An organizational culture describes the values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group of people, in this case, Fred's employees. Accordingly, the values transmitted by Fred and shared by Sandra and her colleagues determine their beliefs and hence are the base for their behavior in day-to-day operations. In a company with well-established organizational culture, employees follow taken-for-granted assumptions when responding to issues they face. 2 years later, Fred is quite happy. Doggyland has established itself in the Spanish leisure for pets market. It still has not reached the success of its original in the US, but Fred sees a promising future for his idea in Europe. In order to improve and combine capabilities, he has made the offer for a merger to Estelle, the owner of the nearby theme park, Kittyland. Both companies focus on a niche market. Doggyland tries to gain market share by differentiating itself from its competitors, while Kittyland tries to penetrate the market by offering low prices. Doggyland and Kittyland decide to merge and become Animalland. Fred knows from his previous experience that organizational culture has a big influence on the strategy development. Although they try to cope with their different business strategies, the performance is weak and unsatisfactory. The 3-step model shows a systematic approach to deal with unsatisfactory of the corporate performance. By using the following model, it is apparent that Animalland should first try to improve their existing strategy by, for example, lowering costs, or improving the efficiency. If corporate performance is still unsatisfactory, the next step would be to reconstruct the existing strategy in line with the existing culture. Managers may seek to extend or downsize the market. If performance is still unsatisfactory, the last and final step of strategy development concerns the change of the existing organizational culture. Changing the culture of an organization should always be the last option, since culture usually develops over time and cannot easily be adjusted by simply replacing current values. Because even if new values are accepted, taken for granted assumptions or behaviors are deeply rooted in the employees' minds and therefore intervene in the changing process. Now you should be able to distinguish between geographically based and organizational culture. Also, the culture's influence in strategy development should be clear to you. The following model provides an overview of the 4 phases companies pass through considering an ever-changing operating environment. In the first phase, businesses try to step-by-step adapt to the continuous environmental changes. When the rate of environmental change starts to outpace the rate of an organization's strategic changes, strategic drift occurs. Businesses are not able to cope with environmental change anymore, and the growing gap results in a downturn in performance. Strategies in phase 3 have no clear direction anymore and fluctuate between the different approaches. Businesses are at a stadium where they are not able anymore to close the gap between environmental change and strategy change. Hence, in phase 4, businesses are at the critical point of making a radical change to the current business strategy. This either leads to business death or back to alignment with the external environments. In order to accomplish a successful strategic transformation, the cultural web is a suitable analysis tool. It shows the behavioral, physical, and symbolic manifestations of a culture, which are the basis of the taken-for-granted assumptions in an organization. Even if employees and managers accept the need of change, often they don't see the underlying issue of deeply rooted structures and mindsets. Here, the cultural web becomes in handy as it looks at 7 important aspects of an organizational culture, being stories, symbols, power structures, organizational structures, control systems, rituals and routines, and a paradigm. From what you have learned so far, you should now know the importance that culture can have on strategic management. With the models and theory explained, you are now able to overcome the difficulties which can arise while expanding to another country and are best witches to create the next Animal Land.